Hello, this is Professor Laird, and I just want to take a few minutes to go through the syllabus for the Spring 2020 online course for Introduction to Politics. This is my email right here as far as needing to get a hold of me. I'm also located in Office A234A. I would recommend that you swing by to see me for a few minutes at the first of the semester. I'll mention that here again in a minute. So this course is looking at a basic introduction to politics. We're looking at the typical concepts of political science as far as power, comparative politics, a little bit on international politics, origin of the state, certain types of government, forms of representation, things like that. The textbook for the course is Power and Choice, Introduction to Political Science by Shively, and this is the latest 15th edition, and the book is required. This is an online course and will require quite a bit of reading, which is part of your participation in the course. Since you're not coming to a lecture, it is very important that you watch the video lectures that I'll be posting as well as reading the textbook. So it is extremely important. So as I mentioned here, the video lectures, videos, quizzes, any supplemental articles, reading assignments, that sort of thing, they will be posted on Moodle. I will be using Moodle exclusively and quite a bit. You will want to look at Moodle every single day as far as keeping up with the course. Also, going to want to keep up with current events on politics and government. Since one of your assignments is going to be a paper, you will want to come up with a current topic to write about as far as politics or government is concerned. I will also be talking quite a bit about peer-reviewed academic journals. Those are going to be your primary sources for your topic. This is where the scientific analysis of politics is done, and this is where those studies get published. Now, as far as participation in the course, this is extremely important. Your participation is 20% of your grade, and you will need to keep up with the course on literally a daily basis. This is not a self-paced course. We are going on progressively. Each week we'll have new videos, and we'll be moving on each week to a new set of the videos, new section of the course. Online quizzes will have deadlines, and then we'll move on to the next section. So therefore, it is imperative that you check Moodle and your school email on a daily basis. You will want to respond to any of the questions that I may have or any of the requests that I may have within certain deadlines. And that's how I will be taking attendance. I will be posting different discussion questions on a weekly basis, and you will have to respond to those discussion questions within a certain deadline, and that's how I will determine your attendance for the course. If you do not respond to a discussion forum by the required deadline, you will be counted absent for that particular discussion forum. So this is very important because this being an online course, attendance and participation and engagement into the course is extremely important in order to get the best out of this course, and that's why participation is 20% of your grade. We'll look at this class schedule here in a minute, but each week will run from a Monday through a Sunday, starting today, January 13th, going through May 5th, total of 15 weeks. Spring break, of course, will be recognized there March 9th through 15th. So typically, as we'll see on the schedule, will be about 2 video lectures per week. Each video will cover one of the chapters in the book, and I may post both of those video lectures at the same time, or I may post them incrementally, first part of the week, second part of the week, so that we will have a separate discussion question on them, perhaps. And so that it's going to be your responsibility to keep up with these lectures, checking Moodle on a daily basis, responding to any discussion questions or any required class exercises within the required deadline for that particular week of activity. So there will be a discussion forum every week, and in some cases I may actually have 2 discussion forums in a week. Depending on what the chapters are, there may be an interesting question I might want to ask about a particular chapter, and then you will have a couple of days or so to respond to that, and we'll move on to the next one. We could actually have a class exercise where I may need you guys to communicate with each other, coordinate in some way to come up with a class answer or a group response, that sort of thing. So that could vary from week to week, so that's up to you to keep up with what's going on the class. As I said, failure to respond by the required deadlines results in deductions from your participation grades. And what you might have to watch out for is that in the interest of time, I may post a discussion question and I may ask you to respond to it within just 2 days so that I can get that response and then move on to the next chapter. So that's why you need to check on a daily basis. So keep in mind, in a typical lecture course, you're looking at least 3 hours a week of just sitting in class time. And that doesn't include anything as far as preparing for the class, reading assignments, studying for the test, etc., etc. So for an online course, you should expect the same thing. You will want to put the required amount of time into the class in order to expect a decent grade out of that class. So one thing that I would highly recommend, and in fact I will just go ahead and say I will require this. I will need you to swing by my office in room A234A and just come by for a quick meeting. I'll give you just a couple of things to as far as preparing for the course, just introduce ourselves to each other, that sort of thing. That seems to help a little bit to at least know who we're dealing with as far as what people look like even. So my typical office hours are going to be Thursdays 10:45 to 11:45. I could actually do that perhaps on Tuesdays at that same time as well, but and like I said, we'll only need to swing by for just a few minutes, 10 to 15 minutes at the most, depending on what questions you may have or what things we might want to talk about. And but I highly recommend that you do that at the very beginning of the class within the first couple of weeks, so we can get the introductions down. Now, as far as the tests, there'll be at least 3 online quizzes, and each quiz will cover about 5 chapters each. All the quizzes, all those 3 quizzes combined will comprise about 35% of your total grade. These quizzes will be open book and open notes, but they will be timed, so do not expect that you will be able to look up the answers to those quiz questions in that time period allotted. You will want to prepare for that quiz. You will want to take notes. You will want to, whatever it takes to get the materials there either nearby or prepared, notes organized, so that when you are dealing with a question on the quiz, you will either already know the answer or know how to get that answer based on your organized notes, because you should not expect to be able to just go look that up in the book or go look that up on the video lectures and still have time to complete that quiz. Now, in order to be fair and try to make the grading as comprehensive and as impartial as I can, the final test will be taken in the testing center on the Paramus campus. And the final test will be comprehensive. It will be 20% of your total grade, and that will be taken during the last week of class, pretty much Monday, April 27th to Friday, May 1st. And you will have to take that test by the end of the day, Friday, May 1st. If you don't, you will get a 0 for the test. So go ahead and put that on your calendar to come in and take the final test in the testing center. So that rounds out my testing to try to make it as fair and consistent as possible. So you'll have at least 75 minutes to complete that test in the testing center, and it will obviously be monitored, closed book, closed notes there in the testing center. It will be comprehensive, and what I will probably do is take the final test from questions off of the online quizzes, as well as a few other topics that I will alert you of with a study guide prior to that test. So once again, whether it's an online quiz or the final test, if you do not take that test by the required deadline, it will be 0 points for that test. So keep in mind, those online quizzes will have a deadline on them so that I will move on to the next week. And if you do not take the quiz by that deadline, which would typically be midnight Sunday night, for example, because the next week is going to start on Monday. So if you do not finish that test by midnight on Sunday night of that week, you would get a 0 for that quiz. So that's why you need to pay attention, keep up, check Moodle on a daily basis, and get engaged in the course. The tests will have a multitude of different things: multiple choice, matching, fill in the blank, true, false, short answer, and every test will have at least one, perhaps two short essay questions where you would have to answer a little bit more comprehensively in order to demonstrate a little bit more fuller understanding of that particular question. Now, there was also going to be a paper for the course, which will be 25% of your grade. We'll look at the grade breakdown here in a few minutes. And I'm not going to dwell a whole lot of time on this because I will be filling you in on more information as we go about the paper. The main thing about the paper is, first of all, come up with a topic. And we will can have some give and take on that. You can shoot me some emails or whatever as far as any ideas as far as that go. We will leave the topics wide open as long as it has something to do where government is perhaps affected by this topic or government is involved in this topic, and there's hardly anything that you can pick that's not going to have some relevance to government needing to be involved in it or being influenced by it. So the first thing you'll do on week 4 is submit a 1/2 page summary of that topic. So, and there will be some give and take on this. I may ask you to resubmit on that so that we can get our topics locked in. And also for that particular 1/2 page summary, give me a couple of sources, news sources from legitimate, credible, nonpartisan news sources as to how you learned a little bit more about that particular topic. So find a good, legitimate news source to help you on that summary. And on weeks 8 and 13, as we'll see in the schedule here, I will ask you to submit me some peer-reviewed academic sources that you've found so far about your topic. So I'll be providing you some information on peer-reviewed academic journals as we go. And then your paper is due at the end of week 14. It will be 4-page minimum, not including your reference page. As I said, I'll be giving you a lot of information as far as tips on how to write a more analytical, critical paper, because the paper is not an opinion editorial. It's not for the purpose of you to spout what you think about things, for you to tell me what you think about what's wrong with the world. That's not the point of the paper. What you are going to do is look up and read several very credible sources, and then you are going to tell me what you've learned about that topic from those sources. So again, I'll be talking about this in more detail later. As far as the instructions go, it will be attached to Moodle or emailed to me in a Word file. That way I can use the Word functions in order to provide review comments. I'll be providing ample information about your writing your paper. This is your basic format for your paper: double space, 12-point font, Times New Roman, 1-inch margins. There will be at least 6 sources of your paper, 4 of which will be peer-reviewed academic journals. All right, so as I said, I'm just kind of introducing you to the paper topic now. I will be filling you in on more and more information as we go throughout the semester on the paper. Now, as far as honor code goes, this being an online course, it's very important that you all the work that you do is your own. Cheating, of course, could literally get you expelled from school. There should be no communication at all regarding the test. Now, if you want to study together, that's fine. But as far as working the online quizzes and that sort of thing, or the tests in the testing center, no communication on that. So any suspicious similarities between any papers or any test answers could potentially warrant an investigation. Let me just put it this way. The single worst thing you can do in college is cheat. Don't even think about it, please. And when it comes to your paper, obviously you cannot plagiarize anything on your paper. That's why you want to be careful about your sourcing, and I will give you plenty of information on how to properly source your material, particularly your quotes. And of course, most of your paper is going to be paraphrasing what you've learned from those sources. So you will cite where that came from at the end of that passage. Bottom line, including your references, do not copy and paste anything. Now, as far as the grade breakdown, as I said, your online quizzes, and I'm looking at 3 of those, is going to be 35% of your grade. Your class paper is going to be 25% of your grade. The final test in the testing center, 20% of your grade. And then class participation, your engagement in the course, your meeting the class deadlines as far as the class discussions and assignments and things like that, that's 20% of your grade. So as far as class schedule goes, the first week starting up today is the chapters 1 and 2, Politics and Power, and looking at the basic intro to modern ideologies and political philosophy. So I won't go into this into detail, but that's what we're looking at as far as the chapter breakdown. As I said, 2 chapters. Each one of these chapters will have a video lecture to it. So you'll have 2 video lectures posted on these first 2 weeks. On week 3, we'll have 1 video lecture posted on chapter 5, and then the rest of the week I will open up for the online quiz. And then in week 4, that's where we'll go ahead and start talking about the paper. I will post a video that gives you some general instructions on writing your paper, as well as a video on what the peer-reviewed academic journals are and how to find them and why they're important. And of course, that week is where you're going to want to submit to me a half-page summary of the topic that you want to write about. So here's the rest of the schedule as far as the chapters we'll be covering on those various weeks. In week 7, we're looking at online quiz number 2, covering chapters 6 through 10. On week 8, I will be asking you for we'll be talking a little bit more about scientific analysis as far as analytical writing. So we'll be using this week also to talk about writing a paper that's critical analysis rather than your own personal opinions. And I will also be looking for some sample peer-reviewed academic journals that you found at that point. After the spring break, we'll get back into the chapters of the book. Here, I'll post another article that goes along with the social movements. And then week 12, we're looking at online quiz number 3. Then in week 13, I will look at what your sources you found so far, so I can give you some feedback on that and more information on final touches to your paper. Also got a couple of chapters here that were not in the online quizzes. So Chapter 17 and Chapter 18, which are pretty big topics there. I will include those on the final test. And your paper due, again, week 14. Last week of class, of course, will be the final test in the testing center. So that kind of wraps up the introduction to the syllabus. And so, again, if you need to get a hold of me, you can shoot me an email there at rlaird@bergen.edu. And again, keep up with Moodle as I will start posting video lectures and discussion forums right away.